Broadcasting from the Unshackled Studios in Melbourne. This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net. Now here's Tim Wilms.
Hello everybody and welcome to this week's WilmsFront Snapshot news show, coming to you on this Monday, the 17th of November 2025. It is 9:15 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria. Apologies for a later start, but something came up this afternoon. We are live on the WilmsFront YouTube channel, the WilmsFront Rumble channel, and my WilmsFront X account. Hello to everyone in the live chats. We begin tonight with breaking news, a political bombshell here in Victoria. The State Liberal Party looks to be changing leader yet again. So Brad Battin, who has been in the role of leader, less than a year after John Prosciutto lost his defamation case against Moira Deeming and she was reinstated to the party room. John Prosciutto's leadership, of course, was untenable, and so he was challenged by Brad Battin, with Sam Groth becoming the deputy. But this afternoon, a cross-factional group of MPs went to Brad Battin's office and told him his time was up as leader and told him to resign. There will be a leadership spill at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow, with the challenger set to be his shadow treasurer, Jess Wilson, who has only been in Parliament one term, elected as the member for Kew in the 2022 state election. She is only 35 years old, but she comes from a Liberal blue blood family. Now, I actually knew her when I was a Liberal student. She was president of the Monash Student Liberals. She seemed nice enough, and she certainly, obviously, I still am a libertarian, but obviously back then I was wanting the Liberal Party to go in a more libertarian direction. She tried to convince me it was. She is married to Aaron Lane, who was one of the first Victorian Liberal candidates to be a victim of cancel culture. He was going to be an upper house candidate for the 2014 Victorian state election, but then some tweets came out where he said shirts are for faggots, and the problem with, I can't remember what the second ex-post was, but he was disendorsed by the then Liberal Premier Dennis Napthine. Of course, that was the end of the one term of Liberal governance we've had in Victoria in the 21st century. Now, this has all come all of a sudden, and if the plotters are telling the truth, and it would appear that Jess Wilson has the numbers. Now, apparently she had to be drafted in. She had to be convinced. The reason that there looks likely going to be a change is because Brad Battin annoyed too many MPs with his reshuffle of the front bench, and of course the Liberal Party, they spend a lot more time tearing down each other than tearing down the Allen Labor government, who must actually be just laughing themselves tonight. The polls haven't changed. In fact, John Prosciutto as leader was ahead in the polls. You just wonder in this alternate timeline, if only John Prosciutto hadn't been rash and defamed Moira Deeming and attempted to get her expelled from the Victorian Liberal Party room, then he could be in the box seat with it's just over a year to go to a state election. This will be the third leader in this term of Parliament. Now, Jess Wilson, like I mentioned, she's very young, 35. She is a moderate. She was the only Victorian Liberal to back the failed Voice referendum in 2023. So that's a mark against her political judgment. And given that Jacinta Allen decided to basically, well, not go on the front foot, but leap out with three announcements last week about getting tough on youth crime. Enough Victorian Liberals thought that neutralised Brad Battin, what they believed was his only offering as leader, as a former Victoria police officer, to be tough on crime. And they thought, well, without that, you haven't really got so much economic policy, much positive vision for the state. Jess Wilson, she has been ramping up her social media activity, including the Liberals want to be the party of housing affordability, but she's been posting NIMBY content on her socials against the Allen government's activity centres around Kew. There was a protest yesterday by Brighton NIMBYs led by the state member James Newbury, the upper house leader David Davis, and the former upper house leader Georgie Crozier. Tim Wilson, the federal Liberal member for Goldstein, was also there. And also Jacinta Allen yesterday was on a victory lap, literally, of the what's her favourite area of Labor policy, and that's infrastructure. Despite it being over budget over time, the Metro Tunnel will have its soft opening on November 30th. The Westgate Tunnel was open for people to walk through before it takes traffic. 50,000 walked through, and Albo was there to offer more funding for the suburban rail loop in the budget next year. So that I'm not sure if that had any impact on the fact that after Jacinta Allen felt that she neutralised, well, through just announceables last week, the Melbourne crime crisis. Of course, there's still crimes occurring. The latest was two houses were peppered by a machine gun. Maybe we need a machine gun amnesty. But Jess Wilson, if she is elected tomorrow, it'll be a woman-on-woman state election next year, a female premier against a female opposition leader. It's a huge gamble by the Victorian Liberal Party, and it seems to be motivated more by, again, grievances against the leader, Brad Battin, though, of course, he still wasn't able to get ahead in the polls. But let's first move to Jacinta Allen's crime announceable blitz last week.
This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net.
Now, Jacinta Allen, her tough on crime announceables began on Wednesday last week. So this was adult time for violent crime. That sounds very familiar. Where have I heard that slogan before? Oh, yes, it's awfully similar to the Liberal National Party of Queensland's electorally successful slogan at the state election last year. led by now Premier David Crisafulli, adult time for adult crime. Well, the difference here is that David Crisafulli has successfully brought down the youth crime rates in Queensland. Jacinta Allen, you can see here that she had a big sign printed out for the press conference, including with a backdrop as well, which read "Early Interventions, Serious Consequences." It sort of reminded me of, you'll remember Dan Andrews' Purple Wall of Doom COVID press conferences. Remember, staying apart keeps us together. Orwellian like that. So Jacinta Allen, she announced that the children aged 14 years and over must face adult sentencing in adult court for serious offences, such as aggravated home invasions or aggravating carjacking offences. And it will also increase the maximum length of jail sentences for aggravated home invasions and aggravated carjackings up from 20 years for intentionally causing serious injury to life sentences, which I don't think a judge or magistrate will sentence anyone, child or adult, to a life sentence. So, as far as I know, this list of crimes that will be subjected to adult time for violent crime, as far as I know, doesn't include murder. Now, I would have thought that murder is the most serious crime, but this list includes intentionally causing injury in circumstances of gross violence, including machete crime, recklessly causing injury in recklessly causing injury in circumstances of gross violence, including machete crime. Now, Jacinta Allen announced this without actually saying the legislation had. The legislation hasn't even been drafted yet. Now, of course, the so-called human rights lobby, which is just human rights for youth criminals, they're already out saying this will affect youth of color disproportionately more. So they are admitting that youth of color are disproportionately committing youth crime, and that locking up kids, it means that they'll commit more offences later in life. What as opposed to now, where they're getting bail and committing more offences. So clearly, the cycle of offending, that's what's got us into this situation. But inside Jacinta Allen's party room, despite there being so many socialist left MPs, none of them opposed this tough on youth crime, adult time for violent crime. Well, because at the end of the day, they would rather be in government, have their seats in parliament, than lose. The next day, well, there was a new backdrop, which there was life sentences for youth gang recruiters, and the backdrop actually called them evil. So it was life sentence for evil youth recruiters. So this was on Thursday. So the increase maximum penalty for recruiting a child to engage in a violent offence will increase from 10 to 15 years, And then there'll be a maximum life sentence for adults who recruit a child to serious and violent offending, such as aggravated home invasions or aggravated carjackings, because a lot of these youths have admitted that organized crime have hired them to steal luxury cars in upper middle class neighborhoods. Then on Friday, Jacinta Allen had a press conference with several members of the retail profession. Harm a worker, face serious consequences. So if you abuse a shop assistant, if you punch a fast food worker, if you threaten a rideshare driver, throw a coffee over your waiter, you'll face serious consequence. So there will be new offences that it's called the Crime Amendment Retail, Fast Food, Hospitality and Transport Worker Harm Bill. So there'll be a new indictable offence. Assaulting or threatening to assault one of these workers will carry a penalty up to 5 years in jail. There'll be separate summary offences for low-level assaults and for conduct that threatens and intimidates the worker, such as profane, obscene or insulting language will carry a penalty of up to 6 months in jail. And, well, this is actually, it took a while for the Victorian government to announce that workplace protection orders, which have been successful in reducing retail crime and abuse in the Australian Capital Territory since they were introduced in 2016. So they basically work the same as AVO's apprehended violence orders. So retailers can apply for the repeat thieves or and those who threaten violence against customers. They can apply for a workplace protection order for up to 12 months. So this is well overdue. So legislation will be introduced in April 2026, and maybe that will stop. It will mean that because Victoria is the retail crime capital of Australia, begin to bring down some of those retail theft and violence rates. Coles said that 70% of its shoplifting is in Victoria. So all of this is well overdue because retail theft is just completely out of control. And of course, in small IGAs, independent grocers, that's where a lot of the aggravated thefts happen. We use with machetes to steal cigarettes. And so there is going to be another amendment. Ram raids will be recognised as aggravated burglary, carrying a high maximum penalty of 25 years and unlocking the powers of adult time for violent crime. So it's a start, I will say, but of course we need to see the legislation first drafted. Then we need to see the legislation implemented, and then there's going to be a lag time between the legislation being passed and it being implemented by the police and going through the judiciary, which of course is the Victorian Labor Party has appointed so many magistrates and judges who don't believe in jailing youth offenders. But you would hope that given that there is legislation passed by the government, that gives a strong indication of what community expectation is. And of course, a lot of this is these announceables last week are poll driven. According to focus groups by the Victorian Labor government, Victorians believe there weren't enough consequences for youth and violent crime. Jacinta Allen does not want to have the state election next year be a referendum on crime, though she will probably maybe rest a little easier for a little while now that Brad the cop looks like he's about to lose his job. The political knives are out for him. Oh, what do we say in Victorian now? The political machetes. The machete amnesty comes to an end on November 30th. Maybe we need, given that there was a machine gun used, maybe we need a machine gun amnesty bin, need another gun buyback. Now, last week, Jacinta Allen's other favourite policy area, the Aboriginal Treaty, she signed this treaty. Of course, that's not the end of it, as I previously said. Now is the era of co-governance, and which, of course, you can guarantee will mean that non-Aboriginal Victorians will be excluded from all places in Victoria. Now, the National Indigenous Television Network, NITV, did an interview with some of these Aboriginal elders in Victoria who, and you'll see in this clip by the looks of them, they appear to have it's only a bit more than a few drops of Aboriginal blood within them.
All through Melbourne are our ancestors' footprints. The MCG is our traditional area where we had our corroborees, where the government house is the camping ground between Wurundjeri and Munro. Dights Falls is our initiation grounds.
We want to be able to speak for waterways, the land, the sky, everything. And our community is going to benefit from being able to do what they want to do on their own country. And it's probably been since about 1856 that this has been in the pipelines. So it's about time that it's coming back for us to speak for our country.
In terms of our young people, of course, we want to have that say and be a part of that cultural practice. Again, to share that knowledge with our children and the children that come next after that.
We want to be able to share everything and be everyone on the same page. We walk together. We want to be able to all work together in this journey.
I wonder if Darcy Cohen-Hunter is part of the Hunter clan. Of course, we have Uncle Colin Jr., who does all the welcome to countries at the AFL, the Melbourne Cup, and the Boxing Day Test. I think his son, the Uncle Colin Hunter III, did the welcome to country at the A-League Grand Final. So, yeah, this, as you can see in that video, it looks like that co-governance is the plans for that are already underway.
This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net.
The Liberal Party net zero soap opera finally came to its climax last Wednesday, and the decision was, so you can see in the top right here, the Conservatives, who were in favour of dumping net zero, all walked into the party room together. That sort of synchronisation only really occurs in a Liberal leadership spill, and could there be another one on the cards with one more week of Parliament. But the Parliament didn't sit last week, so Liberal MPs flew into Canberra especially for this meeting. So Conservatives, Jacinta Price, Sarah Henderson, and Jess Collins, they led the way with the two alternate Liberal leaders standing tall behind them, Angus Taylor and Andrew Hastie. They wanted to exude these Conservatives' confidence and strength. And Sussan Ley, because she basically is willing to do whatever it takes to hold on to her leadership. She seems to me that she's been a politician now for 24 years. She talks all about her life before becoming an MP. It's becoming a shearer's cook, a pilot, and studying tax law, being a punk rocker. But ever since she was elected as the Liberal member for in 2001, she seems to become accustomed to the lifestyle of a politician, and it seems that maybe she only wants to become prime minister to ride in the car with the flag on the bonnet. She wants to become leader and then prime minister. That's an end in itself, because she has changed her policy positions on multiple issues throughout the year. She was for Palestine, now she's for Israel. She was for banning live animal exports, now she supports live animal exports. When she was Environment Minister under the Morrison government, she backed net zero by 2050. Now, net zero, does anyone actually, it's all been lost, I think, what actually net zero by 2050 is. So that's basically that there can be no positive human carbon emissions by 2050. It all has to be mitigated, the carbon emissions, by carbon capture or reforestation. Now, the ABC and the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, they were having convulsions saying this is the end for the Liberal Party in urban seats. Sussan Ley capitulated to the Conservatives in her party, who are still trying to drag her down, and she shafted the moderates who put her in the role. And I've heard some of the ABC, well, they all seem to be female presenters at the ABC, interview Liberal and national politicians, and they always are saying, but. they really cannot accept that it is a good policy to abandon the net zero target, but they are still retaining both the Liberal and National Party. They still want to keep Australia in the Paris Climate Accord, though Sussan Ley, in her press conference after the Liberal Party room decision, so they met on Wednesday, but the position wasn't agreed to on Thursday. She said that if some UN bureaucrats aren't happy that with our targets under the Paris Climate Agreement, I can deal with that. And this is, again, the ABC and The Age and Sydney Morning Herald, that, it's how can you still reach your Paris goals? What I will say in critiquing this new policy is that obviously they're having energy affordability as a number one priority, but they still want to reduce emissions year on year end. So in a sense, they're still saying we can achieve emissions reductions better with more affordable energy prices than Labor. But again, there's no detail. But the whole thing that, if we don't fulfill our Paris climate commitments, what's the UN going to do? Are they going to sanction, invade Australia? I mean, Chris Bowen, he legislated the 2030 target of the 43% emissions reduction. Australia is not going to meet that, and it's not going to meet the Paris targets. Neither is most other countries. Chris Bowen is not going to go to jail or be criminally or civilly liable for not meeting the 2030 target. And like I said, all of these countries are not going to be sanctioned by the UN. But this is the way that the ABC and the Age and the Sydney Morning Herald carry on. It's like we'd be committing some war crime if we didn't fulfill our Paris climate targets. We'd be climate criminals. I mean, this is what they are actually scared of, and this is what the Albanese government is actually scared of, is that as energy prices will continue to go up, they've gone up 24% in the last 12 months in the year ending September, is that the public mood will turn against net zero. And when prices don't come down, Chris Bowen, on his way to go to the COP climate summit in Brazil, it's going for 3 weeks, that talk fest there. I mean, it was bad enough Prince William's climate diatribe there. Well, there's another 2 weeks after that. Now, he claims that, Chris Bowen, wholesale prices have come down, and so retail prices will come down next year. Well, we shall see about that. Chris Bowen will certainly hope that. And this is another thing. The ABC are claiming that, business won't have certainty with no longer a bipartisan climate policy. And so you can't guarantee that prices will come down if you change the settings. Of course, business, they only want certainty to know which subsidies they're going to get. So Dan Tehan, their energy spokesman, who I have to say is not charismatic as well. I can't believe he was being considered for leader. Said that the Liberal Party would change what is known as the capacity investment scheme, which is geared towards renewables. There's so many various different climate financing methods. So he would make the Liberals would make the capacity investment scheme energy agnostic, so it could fund gas, even coal, and nuclear. So the way that Labor is geared it is that it invests in renewables to achieve the national target of 82% renewable energy by 2030. Now, all the Canberra Press Gully were like, are you going to fund new taxpayer-funded coal power stations? I remember back when Matt Canavan first proposed this in 2018, they nicknamed them Bolsheviks, a play on Bolsheviks, communism, and that basically it was a form of central planning. And never mind the fact that the Labor governments in Victoria and New South Wales have extended the life of coal-fired power stations to avoid blackouts. So again, this is when you hear this, because I listen to a lot of the ABC now, when you hear them say that that business they want certainty. Well, they just want the subsidies, and no private business will invest in coal and gas anymore. Well, also woke capital is still a huge thing here. I just remember the Andrew Twiggy Forrest, big on net zero, Mike Cannon Brooks, the renewable energy venture capitalist. So what would be fresh in the Labor Party's memory, and I think that the mainstream media in Australia, they remember this as well, when Tony Abbott became Liberal leader in 2009 and dumped Liberal support for Kevin Rudd's carbon pollution reduction scheme. I remember at the time Peter Van Onselen said that Tony Abbott was unelectable, yet he nearly toppled the Labor government in one term. In fact, they switched from Kevin Rudd to Julia Gillard after Kevin Rudd dumped the carbon pollution reduction scheme. And of course, Tony Abbott, who was kept disciplined and focused by his chief of staff, Peter Credlin, campaigned day in, day out against Julia Gillard's toxic carbon tax and was relentless. So they are scared that the Liberals dumping net zero, focusing on energy affordability, they're scared it will become popular. Now, the Albanese government, it was quite a while ago now, promised to bring a COP conference to Australia next year in Adelaide, but it would cost $1 billion, and public opinion could have turned against renewables by then. And so they are looking for a get out that basically is that because Turkey wants it, or Turkey, we're meant to call it now for some reason. If either Australia or Turkey can't agree, then it defers to Bonn in Germany. How come we don't call Germany Deutschland, but we're supposed to call Turkey by its Turkish name, Turkey? How come we don't call Germany Deutschland now? Interesting. Now, Sussan Ley had a spring in her step with the conclusion of this net zero soap opera, but this was short-lived because there was a Redbridge Ascent poll in the Australian Financial Review last night, which was even worse for the Liberals than the News poll 2 weeks prior. So Labor is at a primary vote of 38%, that's the most healthy the Labor primary vote has been in a long time. And most of that has come off the Greens. They've really, I think, on their way to defeating the Greens, who have now dropped to 9%, because the Greens are so fixated on foreign issues such as Gaza and Palestine. The Coalition at 24%, according to Kos Samares, the Liberal primary vote is at 20%, propped up by the LNP Queensland primary vote, and 4% for the National Party. One Nation at 18%. The News poll had One Nation at 15%. So that's I think the highest One Nation has been ever, and others 11. Now, it is clear that most of that has come from the Coalition primary vote. So clearly, we shall see if any of it comes back to the Liberal Coalition Party, but that's a pretty bad poll, and what a difference 24 hours can make. It looked like that Sussan Ley was safe till the end of the year, But if you have a look at this poll, there's Talk Parliament back for 1 week. There was a report by Peter Van Onselen last night, which was reported by The Australian the next day. Peter Van Onselen now works for the Daily Mail, that moderates have switched to Andrew Hastie. There is talk of a dream team ticket now of Andrew Hastie for leader and Tim Wilson as deputy. The Coopers leadership ticket, because Cooper's beer got cancelled because Tim Wilson and Andrew Hastie had a respectful debate about same-sex marriage over a Cooper's beer sponsored by the Bible Society. So even though obviously Andrew Hastie is a very economically and socially conservative, Tim Wilson is a moderate liberal. They are good friends, and so they could make a good leadership team together. But if you have a look at the breakdown by generations, Gen Z, 51% for Labor, 10% for the Coalition, 24% for the Greens, 5% for One Nation. In millennials, my generation, it's 34% for Labor, 23% for the Coalition, 18% for One Nation, 11% for the Greens, and 14% for others. Gen X, they are 20% for One Nation, 38% for Labor, 26% for the Coalition. Baby Boomers, 34% for Labor, 30% for Coalition, and 24% for One Nation, 3% for the Greens. Now, if you have a look at preferred Prime Minister, I should mention the two-party preferred, Labor 56%, Coalition 44%, so that's an increase on the federal election. Preferred Prime Minister Anthony Albanese 40%, Sussan Ley 10%. She's still 1 point ahead of Brendan Nelson when he was Liberal leader in 2008. He had a preferred Prime Minister rating of 9%, and of course, he didn't last out a year as leader. She is ahead of about the same, though she's trailing neither, and she's trailing unsure. And now, Anthony Albanese still has an unfavourable rating of -2, but Sussan Ley has a approval rating of -21. Larissa Waters of the Greens, -7. Pauline Hanson, of course, there's still like Nigel Farage over in the United Kingdom, has a negative approval rating. Pauline, 45% negative, 32% positive. And Pauline has said that it's not good enough, that the Liberals have only ditched net zero. They need to ditch the Paris Climate Accord as well. Now, in my opinion, I don't think Pauline Hanson's One Nation, or it's just being changed back to One Nation now, is capable of the organizational structure to be to surge like reform, because it's always going to be a dictatorship by Pauline Hanson and James Ashby. A lot of that poll result would be concentrated in the region, so they could be head two-party preferred in regional seats in New South Wales and Queensland. So we shall see if Sussan Ley, if she's able to sell this new energy policy. She has hinted that the Liberals will next look at a new immigration policy. And Andrew Hastie, he has said that that's the policy that he wants to move on to as well, though I wouldn't bet on the Liberals and Nationals changing Australia's non-discriminatory immigration policy. They would just look at cutting the numbers, because the Liberals and Nationals, they don't want to offend the various ethno-religious blocks of votes, the Indians, Hindus, Sikhs, Chinese, because they always worry, well, Labor will, you can guarantee what Labor will do. They will always say if the Liberal Party is promising to cut immigration, they mean that they never wanted you brown people to be in the country in the first place, and this shows that they don't like you. That's how the Labor Party always spins Liberal immigration policy.
This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net.
Well, one aspiring political party that certainly does support a discriminatory immigration policy, in fact, wants to bring back the White Australia policy, is the White Australia Party, which, of course, has grown out of the National Socialist Network. And even though it's been over a week since their protest outside the New South Wales State Parliament that said abolish the Jewish lobby, the Sydney Morning Herald and the ABC still can't help themselves but pump out endless articles about how alarming it is that a White Australia political party wants to register, and in fact they should be banned from registering, which cannot be done because of the Constitution. The precedent is Robert Menzies tried to ban the Communist Party in the 1950s. The High Court said you can't do that, and so he tried to pass a referendum. That failed. So the only way to ban the White Australia Party from being registered would be to have a referendum. Now, the strategy of the media this past week has been to dox as many of those who attended that White Australia NSN protest as possible. Now, the reason why they're doing this is because, well, they're hoping to crack these people to make them go away or to basically capitulate. There have been white nationalist activists in the past who have totally capitulated, fallen to water under scrutiny, such as Clifford Jennings and Justin and Lisa Bueller. Theirs was their marriage to the alt-right on the ABC. That was absolutely hilarious. Google or YouTube that married to the alt-right ABC. Absolutely hilarious. Lisa Bueller, Sanford, said that she joined the alt-right because she really loved baking. It was so hilarious. And another one who's capitulated is Damien DePile. He collaborated with an ABC radio podcast, Everyone Wants to Be Führer, where he didn't use his name and he got an actor to say his lines, but everyone who was in the white nationalist movement was able to identify that was him. And it's often the most hardcore, the one who's go really hard, who are the ones that often capitulate. So that's what they're trying to achieve there. Of course, it can have the opposite effect because all of the National Socialist Network members who they've doxed over the past 2 years, such as Nathan Bull and Michael Nelson, for example, they have doubled down. They have intensified their activism, so it can have the opposite effect. But they are claiming a scalp today. It was revealed that one of the participants, Matthew Goethe, is actually a South African immigrant who is on a visa in Australia, who has been living in Australia with what is described as his influencer wife, for 3 years. And so Tony Burke today decided to cancel his visa and deport him. So it shows, I saw that it was interesting that, obviously Sherry Markson tonight cheered this on. I saw that Monica Schmidt also thought that this was a good decision. But I heard Sherry Markson say, well, how come you're not deporting a lot of these hate speeches and other Islamic extremists who are not Australian citizens? Again, Tony Burke always goes for what are the easy targets. Like, it's sort of the same with denying a Kanye West year, and also like I mentioned, Candace Owens as well. Now, Chris Minns, the New South Wales Premier, he's defended the doxing of NSN White Australia members. Even though I thought doxing was illegal, apparently mainstream media can still do it. So it sort of seems like the White Rose Society is getting the mainstream media to do their dirty work in doxing since they've got a media exemption. Chris Minns, he said that anyone who's a Nazi can expect to be shamed and lose their job.
A lot of the people who are associated with that march last week have exposed themselves to public scrutiny. There's no such thing as a part-time Nazi. You can't hold down a job somewhere else in civic life and expect to be free from scrutiny by joining one of these horrible organisations. I mean, if your primary objective here is to split Australian against Australian, then you're going to be subject to scrutiny from the rest of the country.
Now, John Ruddock and Mark Latham, they both said that Chris Minns was acting as the NSN's chief recruiter because, of course, they love this publicity. In fact, Jack Eltis on his Telegram channel loved that both the Sydney Morning Herald and the Daily Telegraph on Saturday both had feature articles on the National Socialist Network and White Australia. And so this was Mark Latham's very accurate summation of how Chris Minns is actually playing into the NSN White Australia recruitment.
Thank you, Assistant President. There's a fair bit of mirth around the chamber about the way in which the Premier is out on social media pointing out for the White Australia Party that they need 750 members to register in New South Wales. Videos that have received tens of thousands of views, and I think they're about to appoint him as their chief recruitment officer on the basis of those videos. So I go to note question 4585 on the notice paper, that from the answer from the New South Wales Police confirming that in our state there hadn't been a single serious anti-Semitic attack on people or property on the streets of New South Wales driven by anti-Semitic ideology. It was all paid for by organised crime other than the two idiot nurses at Bankstown Hospital. So we've got zero attacks of any degree of seriousness, as opposed to the Premier saying there's been 367, the Police Minister saying, and she's corrected that, 700. In fact, the number is zero. So the reason the Premier talks about these idiots out the front here on Saturday is he's been waiting for the miracle weapon of some evidence of anti-Semitism that I can grab onto like a drowning man.
Now, as I mentioned last week, that the ASIO Director General Mike Burgess actually said to the mainstream media, like, you're doing a NSN's publicity, they view you as useful idiots. And they just can't help themselves because Nazis, they're so sensationalist. Actually, I thought it was, I couldn't believe Monica Schmidt today actually asking the mainstream media to give moderate conservatives such as herself publicity for her Put Australia First rallies in Sydney on the 29th of November, and Melbourne on the 30th. She definitely hopes that they would be more attended than the Save Australia Valley that I went to on November 15th. That was very poorly attended. But Monica is basically saying you should platform moderate conservatives such as me. She's been an activist for 5 years and should know that the mainstream media, of course, they are going to pick the most sensationalist angle, and they are going to demonize anyone to the right of Sussan Ley. So they're not going to do you any special favors because, well, basically you're describing yourself as a moderate. That's not going to drive clicks. Of course, like I said, media can't help themselves, even though they are really scared about the White Australia Party getting registered. They can't help but talk about them non-stop, again, feeding their publicity goals.
This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net.
Now, let's go over to the United States, where it's been a taco buffet. What do I mean by that? Of course, taco, the acronym Trump always chickens out. Now, it was originally coined when Trump backtracked on his massive tariff threats. Now, he's previously described tariffs as, well, tariff is the most beautiful word in the English language. He called the reciprocal tariffs as Liberation Day, and there have been plenty of Trump, I wouldn't say loyalists, but basically just defend whatever he does, even if he goes against what he promised, to claim that tariffs are going to make America wealthy again. Of course, I've always said that tariffs are economically self-destructive. And what do you know, with Trump the Republicans not doing well in the off-year elections, Trump has signed an executive order scrapping tariffs on beef, coffee, bananas, oranges, tomatoes, tea, cocoa, spices, fruit juices, and fertilizers effective immediately. Now, that is because grocery prices were going up. Now, I thought that tariffs were supposed to make America richer, but it's making things at the grocery store more expensive. And this is why in the Liberals at the campaigning at the federal election, Peter Dutton saying Albanese should just give Trump whatever he wants and then some more was absolutely stupid strategy. Just like with Xi Jinping and his punitive trade sanctions on Australia, they are always economically self-destructive on the nations who impose them. This is why the trade sanctions on Russia have not hurt Russia themselves. They've hurt all of us. That's why we're paying more on so many fronts. So in these situations, you don't blink. You don't get down on your hands and knees and beg. Trump, it would appear, does know deep down that tariffs hurt, and I don't think these tariffs are going to be put back on. Now, Trump also tacoed on the government shutdown. So he reopened the government. 8 moderate Democrats voted to reopen the government, but I think they just did that so the other Democrat senators look like they're holding the line, because Trump yielded on the SNAP food stamps and also on the Affordable Care Act. So those payments, those welfare payments, are continuing. And he has also tacoed on the Epstein files. So he previously called it a Democrat hoax, but now he has said that House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide. Nobody cared about Jeffrey Epstein when he was alive. If the Democrats had anything, they would have released it before our landslide election victory. Yet he has still disendorsed Marjorie Taylor Greene and has claimed that all wacky Marjorie do is complain. It all seemed to begin with when I sent her a poll stating that she should not run for Senate or governor. She was at 12%. Marjorie has said she's never been approached Trump about running for Senate or governor and didn't have a chance unless, of course, she had my endorsement she wasn't about to get. She is upset. She has told many people she is upset I don't return her calls anymore, but with 219 congressmen, women, and almost 200 countries, otherwise normal life to lead, can't take a ranting lunatic's call every day. I understand that wonderful conservative people are thinking about primary. Marjorie in a district of Georgia, they are fed up with her antics, and if the right person runs, they have complete unyielding support. She has gone far left, even doing The View with low IQ Republican hating anchors. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. But it seems that the main disagreement between Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, is that Marjorie Taylor Greene, like Thomas Massie, is demanding the Epstein files be released. And of course, Trump has already said that Thomas Massie should be primaried, despite them being two pro-America First Congress people. Yet he spent the weekend golfing with Lindsey Graham, a never Trumper, endorsed Mark Levin's book, who was a never Trumper. This is what he gave Marjorie Taylor Greene a new nickname just today.
He said that Candace has been claiming Erica Kirk was...
Her life is in danger? Who's that?
Marjorie Taylor Greene, she said.
Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't think her life is in danger. Frankly, I don't think anybody cares about her. Okay, what about you?
Are you negotiating?
Now, Trump said about Thomas Massie, he went very low because, well, Thomas Massie's wife died last year, and he said about him getting remarried. So he said, did Thomas Massie sometimes referred to as Rand Paul Jr. because of the fact that he always votes against the Republican Party get married already? Boy, that was quick. No wonder the polls have him at less than 8% chance of winning the election. Anyway, have a great life, Thomas. And his wife will soon out that she's stuck with a loser. And Laura Loomer, who has also never liked Marjorie Taylor Greene, went even lower. Serious question and serious answers only. How did Rep. Thomas Massie wife die? Is there a police report? Is there an autopsy? Why is this such a mystery? I'd like to know. I find it so bizarre and always have. Now there's a much younger woman in the picture. Just asking questions, apparently. I thought that was, you weren't supposed to do that. Now, another conservative commentator who has now been scheduled for cancellation is Megyn Kelly. So this is Megyn Kelly. She's called out Ben Shapiro for lying about what Candace Owens said about Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk.
He said that Candace has been claiming Erica Kirk was behind the murder of Charlie, which I had not heard, and I was taken aback because that seems like something I would have heard. It's so crazy. And I have since learned it is not true. Candace has not made that claim. And in fact, I've now seen several clips of Candace specifically defending Erica Kirk and saying she would never make a claim like that about Erica, and that she is open-minded to other people at Turning Point. That's obvious. She's been making that point. I had heard that point. But she's specifically been defending Erica Kirk, and she's been saying she does not think that of Erica. And in fact, if you read her comments, she's under pressure to make comments about Erica. And so far, what I've seen, she hasn't. So thank you for that question.
Now, because Megyn Kelly, like Candace Owens, has been indulging alternate theories about Charlie Kirk's assassin, that it wasn't Tyler Robinson, who had a transgender boyfriend called Twigs. For the record, I believe that Tyler Robinson was the shooter, but you're allowed to believe in whatever conspiracy theory you want. So they're mad at Megyn Kelly for that. They're also mad that she continued to have Tucker Carlson as a guest on her tour, because Tucker Carlson is supposed to be cancelled now for having a 2-hour discussion with Nick Fuentes, which if you watch the whole 2 hours, Tucker makes it clear that he doesn't agree with Nick Fuentes' discriminatory views on race and immigration. Tucker always says that he has the Christian non-racial view. So clearly those critics didn't watch it, but because Megyn Kelly did not, basically said to Tucker, "You're a bad man for platforming this white supremacist." We saw that Heritage, after initially defending Tucker, capitulated to Conservative Inc. So they're now going after Megyn Kelly, and they think they've got her with this clip because she said that Epstein wasn't a pedophile.
As for Epstein, I've said this before, but just as a reminder, I do know somebody very, very close to this case who is in a position to know virtually everything. Not everything, but virtually everything. And this person has told me from the start, years and years ago, that Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls. And I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts. That he wasn't into like 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types that could pass for even younger than they were, but would look legal to a passerby. And that is what I believed, and that was what I reliably was told for many years. And it wasn't until we heard from Pam Bondi that they had tens of thousands of videos of alleged, forgive me, they used to call it kiddie porn, now they call it child sexual abuse material, on his computer, that for the first time I thought, oh, no, he was an actual pedophile. I mean, only a pedophile gets off on young children abuse videos. She's never clarified it. I don't know whether it's true. I have to be honest. I don't really trust Pam Bondi's word on the Epstein matters anymore. Yeah, so I don't know what's true about him, but we have yet to see anybody come forward and say, I was I was under 10. I was under 14 when I first came within his purview. Look, you can say that's a distinction without a difference.
No, it's not.
I think there is a difference. Yeah. There's a difference between a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old. Yeah. You know, it's just whatever.
Now, Megyn Kelly is technically correct when she said that Epstein was not a pedophile. He was a ebophile, which is the primary sexual interest in later adolescents, typically aged between 15 and 18. But we do tend to talk about child rape, anyone under the age of consent. We tend to call it generally as pedophilia. But of course, it sounds like she is diminishing Epstein's crimes there. I mean, what he did was illegal. It was child rape. I mean, a lot of states in the United States have the age of consent at 18, and it's using the term barely legal. I mean, barely legal means, what is that, 18. So she used that term wrong there as well. So she's phrased that completely wrong. And of course, this clip has just been used to, well, they're trying to throw things at Megyn Kelly, seeing what sticks. So now, you sure she was the woman she was chatting to with the Star of David necklace was Batya Unga Sargon. So she's a self-described MAGA leftist there. So clearly, a Conservative Inc. wanting to strike back. They are gunning for her next, Megyn Kelly, because she has not disavowed Tucker or Candace.
This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net.
Now, the BBC, they issued an apology to Donald Trump, who was threatening to sue them for $1 billion. So the BBC chair, Sami Saha, sent a personal letter to the White House making it clear to President Trump that he and the corporation are sorry for the edit of the president's speech on 6th of January 2021, which featured in the program. The BBC has no plans to rebroadcast the documentary Trump: A Second Chance on any BBC platform. While the ABC sincerely regrets the manner in the video clip was edited, we strongly disagree there is a basis for the defamation claim. Well, we'll see about that. I would love for Trump to bankrupt the BBC, and I'm sure there'd be many Brits who prefer that their license fee went to Trump than more BBC biased. There's still so many who claim that the BBC is not biased against Trump. Even Emily Maitlis of the Fake News Agents claims the BBC is not biased against Trump, even though she had a meltdown on Channel 4's election night coverage in 2024 when Trump won. Extraordinary. They just seem to live in another world, Emily Maitlis of the Fake News Agents. And that brings us to the end of another WilmsFront featured news program. Thank you for joining me at this later time. Now, Richard Wollstonecroft is busy with the Melbourne Underground Film Festival, organising that, which is coming up very, very soon next month in December. So I haven't got the poster here ready to put up on the screen. It is going to be from Friday, November 28 to Thursday, December 4 at the Black Sheep in Hawthorne. So same venue as last time. Next show, I will let you know where you can get. I think he's actually just going to be selling tickets at the door. It's going to be cash only. I don't think he's going to use Eventbrite or anything like that, but I'll double check with him. Hopefully, I will publish some reports, record and publish some new reports with him on this Friday. I know he's very busy. And I'll let you know with the WilmsFront featured interview program is next. Thank you so much for your time tonight. I will see you same time next Monday evening. Well, at the proper time next Monday evening. Good night.
Thanks for tuning in to WilmsFront. Visit timwilms.com to view the archive of episodes. And keep visiting theunshackled.net to view all our shows and to keep up with the latest real news and analysis.